It's an honor to be here tonight, and I want to also say hello to my good friend, Dr. Mark Shelton, who's here. Wait, Mark. I need to do a switch. I put my glasses on because I'm old and blind. Hot dog. Okay, you got it now. Okay. Hey, it is good to be here from Deep East Texas, and I was the first representative ever elected as a Republican from Deep East Texas since Reconstruction. So it's quite an extraordinary situation. I came in, quite frankly, got involved in government because of went to my church. I had 3 daughters. Liza, Lindsay, Lauren, 3 daughters, and when they got in school, Ann Richards was trying to pass something called Adolescence Pregnancy Prevention and Control. I know you young people here don't understand all that, but it was sex education like we never believed would happen. That's probably happening now. But it was back in the day and age that we got together with a lot of churches and folks all. So I went to my board of deacons at my local church and said, guys, do y'all know what is going to come to the local school here teaching this sex education that we biblically don't believe in? And of course, what did I get from my fellow church deacons in my church? Separation of church and state. We can't say anything, right? So all of a sudden, my wife and I organized the Christian Coalition. Some of you may have been around back that long. And during Reagan's time and all, got involved in doing that. And by the time we got through, we beat Ann Richards' bill as a group of citizens like you here and from across the state. And of course, they called me up and said, Christian, you're a loudmouth and you're a right-wing conservative. Why don't you come and serve as a state representative? And so they drove me up to Austin, Texas, put me in a smoke-filled room. Before I knew it, I was driving home in bumper stickers and the whole works. And for the last 7 sessions, I served in the Texas House. I beat everything the Democrats could throw at me. It took a supermajority of Republicans to kick me out of office this last session. Okay? That's what it took. Let me tell you kind of the story. Now, I can sit here and say, okay, well, this guy is sour grapes. He got beat. So he's telling on the chip on his shoulder and all this kind of stuff. Fine. You can say that if you want to. That's fine. That's good. Let me tell you, I've been blessed by the good Lord to have the opportunity to serve in the greatest state, the greatest nation. For my local constituents to elect me and allow me to serve, I'm a blessed man. And that's the ultimate thing. And that's something I learned. And this is something I'm sharing with people because, and if I talk too fast or whatever, my daughter, who's, really knows how to do the internet and stuff, is doing a blog for me to do a blog. And she tells me, Daddy, you got to do that at least once or twice a week or so and say something. So my blog is Wayne Tex. Wayne, Texas. Think of it a town. W-A-Y-N-E-T-X. That's it. Wayne Tex. And you go there on the internet, and evidently my daughter is putting up all kinds of junk about me, okay? Real quickly, let me tell you, 15 years ago, I went to run for office, and great Senator Phil Brown said, Wayne, let me tell you something. This is how you run for office. And Mark, you'll probably relate to this. He says, you first get your picture made with a pretty family. If you don't have a pretty family, borrow one and get a good picture made. And put a dog in the picture because people love to see a pretty family and a dog in the picture. This is Phil Brown. Then he said this is very important, very true. He said you start raising money, and the last 30 days you spend every penny you get because the person who spends the most money in the last 30 days wins 90% of the time. I want you to digest that just a little bit. Money controls politics, period. If you come away with nothing else tonight, you learn that. After 14 years in the Texas House, I've had every kind of philosophy. Listen, I was the first person when Peggy Venable was hosting the first Tea Party on the Capitol lawn. I think there were about 30 people there right after they started organizing. I was there. I went to the second one downtown with, Michael Williams and Governor Perry, the only 2 people there with the Tea Party at that event. I've been to every Tea Party. We went through the session, and finally, I was with the Democrats the first 3 sessions I was there. Pete Laney as speaker. They were very kind to me. There was an atmosphere back in that day and age, literally in Texas, unlike Washington, that you'd go to Austin, they'd work to beat me every way they could in the world, but then you got to Austin, they shook hands, and they actually helped, and we tried to do what was best for the state of Texas. How novel. And I understand the Democrats are supposed to fight us and work against us in office. Let me tell you, folks, we have changed the system as Republicans, okay? I know this is not Republican gathering here, but we changed the system when we as Republicans got in there to the point that we rule now through threat, intimidation, and if you don't do what they won't do, they'll kick you out. Let me tell you. And that is a sad situation we've come to in the state of Texas that we don't really sit there and do. Now, I understand this. First one in there, let me give you kind of a history to it. We were in there and the Republicans took over in the session. We moved to a more conservative legislature in the state of Texas. And we were ruling for a year or two there, a pretty conservative session. And all of a sudden, right in the middle of the session, there were a group of about a dozen members, Republicans, that decided they needed a different speaker right in the middle of the session. And I don't have any trouble with anybody wanting somebody different. That's what democracy is for, and to be able to argue that. But not in the middle of the session. I mean, we just had 5 months. You barely get anything done during that time, right? So in the middle of the session was not the time. So a group of us, 28 of us, formed what was called the Conservative Coalition. We reorganized the Conservative Coalition. Quite frankly, the Conservative Coalition has been around for about 25 years up there, but it was nothing but a front for liberals to claim they were a member of the Conservative Coalition and go home and say, I'm conservative. And what we did, the first thing we did is we reorganized the Conservative Coalition and threw out all the liberals, and we wound up with 28 of us that started. Then during the next, and that was to get conservative legislation through, okay? And we kept fighting on that, went to the next interim, and came back, and all of a sudden we had 12 Republicans and 68 Democrats elect a speaker, a new speaker, the current speaker. And that kind of shocked us, that we have a democratically elected speaker from the Republican Party. But that was fine. That's the way it works. So we came home during the interim. I, as the Conservative Coalition Chairman, as GOPAC co-chairman on the board for GOPAC, traveled the state to about 5,000 miles during that interim to talk to Tea Parties up here, all around the state, about we need conservatives out running. And so we worked all that interim to get more conservatives elected to the Texas House of Representatives to make sure that we could have a conservative caucus. Because the reason the current administration said they came into office is because we had become too conservative and radical right-wing conservatives. And we needed a more moderate legislature in Texas. Now, we as the conservatives didn't believe that. And so they came in there, took it over, did that. We worked during the session. We had big meetings up here in Dallas-Fort Worth area, had Judge Napolitano here at the Civic Center up here. Some of y'all may have gone at that time. And we hosted that, had the word out. And for the first time in history, come the next session, that was the last session, not this one, we had the first supermajority of the citizens of Texas delivered to the Texas House in history. And we were all excited. We had worked all the time to get good conservative members up there, had a first supermajority in Texas history of Republicans. And guess what? We elected the exact same leadership team that 68 Democrats and 12 Republicans had the session before. Okay? Now we come to this current moment in time. You guys worked your tail off as Tea Parties all this last interim, trying to get something done, trying to get something changed, trying to get something different. Guess who's still in control? Okay? Let me tell you what you do. Let me know how you go through this. Let me give you just kind of my history on this thing. Let's take the Republican Party of Texas. Kathy Adams was kind enough when she was chairman of the Republican Party here, great lady, that she asked me to be the platform chairman for the state Republican convention. So I was platform chairman. And so in that, I went and called one of the executives that currently is no longer with the state party. So I'm not talking about anybody currently. But I asked that one of the executives in the state party, I said, why don't we have, as we as members, Dr. Shelton and I, we work together, why don't we sign a white screen as we go onto the platform of the convention, and everybody applauds, hey, Wayne Christian, he's great and wonderful, and everybody applauds, and I sign my name that I'm going to support the platform of the state of Texas. Now understand, platform of the state Republican Party of Texas. The Republican Party of Texas is the second largest gathering of people for political purposes in the United States. Only thing bigger is the national convention. And you have something like 9,000 citizens pay their own way up there for a weekend to write a platform and work for the political party, right? That's what they do. That's what we do. And so I said, let's just sign that we support the platform as we go on. That executive with the Republican Party at that time told me as platform chairman, he said, Wayne, I wouldn't ask a politician to support the platform if I had to. And I'm thinking, my wife and I and our friends had driven to whatever town it was and done the platform and worked and thought we were doing something to show up. All these citizens of the state show up there, and those yahoos, when we leave town, what do they do with that platform we think is so great and wonderful? They clinked their glasses, laughed, they got us out of town and threw it in the darn trash can. That's almost a literal statement. I don't know about you, Doc, but I don't remember in my 7 terms in the Texas House in the Republican caucus ever hearing the Republican platform mentioned. Okay, back up. So I go in there and I say, well, let's do something. Why don't we have an accountability factor in the state Republican platform this time? And so I proposed, with the platform committee passed, they thought it was a good idea, to have a report go out to the voters 180 days prior to the next primary showing how all of us had voted on the issues in the Republican platform. You talk about, the people thought it was wonderful. They voted it in, thought it was great. But you think the leadership of the state Republican Party, what they thought about it? Let me just tell you, the fellow who told me that he would never ask anybody to sign the platform, he was the consultant for my opponent that just beat me in this last election. Okay? That's how much they love me in the Republican state party. Okay? Let's go back to the House. Texas House of Representatives, we go in there and we work as a Republican caucus. And what do we work as? As a Republican group or conservative groups that try to get things done for the good of the state of Texas. And if you don't walk the line, what happens to you? So in that last session where we had the same leadership elected, and I knew the people that I talked to in TEA parties all across the state wanted a conservative state government. And so we went in there and they were having redistricting. And redistricting is where they, of course, draw the map. And the way that they keep your lead is they draw the maps. So I couldn't get a hearing before the committee chairman, who, by the way, y'all are up here in this area successfully beat him out of office this time. But anyhow, he drew the maps. I had no say in it, so we had another group of conservatives that got together and started doing an alternative redistricting plan in the session so we'd get our views of how to get back together. For me in my house, they drew me an 80% new district, 20% voters. So in that regards, when you hear that the leadership of the Texas House does not use intimidation, whatever they can use to kick out people that don't agree with them, I can tell you, they drew the map against me. And it didn't pour pill for me, there were several others that they did. Now, so here we come again this time. Then we move to the Republican Party, how they stand behind the platform. Have a real problem that we don't believe what the platform says, don't try to do what it says. Second thing is they use intimidation, threats, and committee appointments. What's committee appointments? Understand when a member goes in there, guess who nominates every committee in the Texas legislature? The Speaker appoints 1/2 of every committee. So the Speaker is the dictator, basically, of the committees in the Texas House. That's just the way it's always been, nothing new. And so the Speaker nominates half the committee, the other half is by seniority. Okay? So half the committee, and then the chairman of each committee is appointed by the Speaker. So whoever the Speaker is, it's not like a democracy, because if you have a bill that every one of the members in the Texas House of Representatives, every senator, the governor, every citizen of the state of Texas wants to have passed, and it goes, say it's an agriculture bill, it goes before the agriculture committee, and everybody wants the price of fried chicken to go down. Say, okay, we're all for lower price fried chicken. And so we have this bill that everybody's for. Okay, but guess what? One person doesn't want it there. The chairman of the committee. Guess what? He never has to hear it. Doesn't matter if every member of the committee begs him to hear it. The chairman is the dictator over that committee. And understand, the chairman is appointed by who? The Speaker of the Texas House. So it is very important who becomes the Speaker of the Texas House. Okay? So that's a good reason there. Now, we cover that. You've got the party. You've got the money. Now, the money is also the other part of the scenario that, back to the start, I told you, controls what goes on in government, period. What the big money wants, folk, the big money gets. Okay? I can tell you that it's absolutely amazing. In this fact, what happens when you go to Austin, and Mark, you can yell at me and scream if I'm wrong, is the big money folks get, basically, they get together before anybody ever gets there and figure out what they want out of the session. And basically, the big dollars get what they want. And whatever's left over, we may have a chance to fight over. But I guarantee you, if you've got certain organizations, certain PAC groups, and most of them are good. But let me tell you something. A lady in Waco, Texas, at a meeting that we went to, asked me, said, Representative Christian, what can we do to stop these people from spending our grandkids' money and throwing and spending all these dollars and putting us in debt as a state and as a nation? Why do we do that? What can we do to get people to... And I answered that lady, I said, ma'am, if whenever they come to Waco, Texas, you'd have a parade in downtown Waco for the politician who did not bring home the new library, who did not bring home the new loop around town. Then you'd start seeing politicians start doing what the people are asking them to do. But folks, as long as every other representative in the state is terrible for spending money, but whenever yours brings the bacon home, you lap him on the back and slap him and say, what a great guy you are, buddy, let's have a ribbon cutting, and everybody turn out, we will continue to go in debt as a state and as a nation. God, they won't go debt as a state, we're in balanced budget, thank God. And the neat thing about all this is that Texas is better than most. Thank God we live in Texas. Okay, thank God we live here. Now, the legislature is made up of people. And may I say the vast majority are just good, decent folks. But the problem is because of the way the power has been run for years, at least in the Texas House, on the Speaker's election. It doesn't matter who the Speaker is now. I'm not bad-mouthing the current Speaker to this extent. Just say it. Because it's run that way, then all of a sudden, that I as a state representative get up there and I have to make a decision. Am I going to do all the real things that my folks wanted me to do when I got up here? If I know and I work against that speaker that I'm not going to get the committee appointment, I may get my bills killed, I'm not going to be able to accomplish for my constituents as much. But if I go ahead and don't fight and join in the establishment and join in with the current leadership, then I may get a better appointment committee. I'll be more friendly with leadership, and I may get more bills in for my constituents. Now, you have to stop and admit that's a legitimate thought pattern. Now, I'm too stupid to have thought that way, okay? And thus, I'm no longer in office anymore. I honestly believe we should do what the people say. Well, folks, as long as that's the case. Now, let me tell you, we can go up to Austin and the Tea Parties I've visited to all over this state. We believe in what's right. We believe in a God-fearing country of independence. We believe in the opportunity to achieve the American dream. We believe in equality. Equality has been something that we as conservatives and as Republicans have been very hesitant to speak of. And one problem I had with the Tea Party in general when it first came out is they went along with this philosophy that you shouldn't mix morals and fiscal policy. You shouldn't mix morals and politics. Let me tell you something, folks. You put a crook in charge of your money, you're going to lose money every single time. Got that? In fact, when I first went in office back in 1997, I asked at the Republican Caucus meeting, I said, when are we going to address human services, welfare, how it's been abused, how people are hurting, how we're addicting people to life? When are we going to address that? I was told at the Republican Caucus meeting in San Antonio, Texas, prior to my first session, Christian, you'll have plenty of chances to take care of that during the session. Just wait, you'll have a chance. That'll come up later. 14 years later, Susan Combs came out with a report this past interim that public education may not be the number one expenditure of your tax dollars and mine in the next 2 or 3 years. Guess what will be number one? Health and Human Services. You got it. And we as Republicans, as Tea Partiers, okay, as Christians, have been very hesitant to speak our moral agenda in the public arena. We have sat here and abdicated our place. And we want to have, Chuck Colson, before he died, bless his heart, wrote something I think is very extraordinary. He said there's a new religion in America. It's called tolerance. We in the church will tolerate anything. And when we start talking bad about something, like whatever it is, divorce, homosexuality, illegitimate birth, non-marriage of having bad families, there used to be what's called the word shame involved in society. And folks, while I love everybody, we should have love and caring. You start to let the moral agenda of any country, let me tell you, no country has lasted in history, check it out, on planet Earth without some type of basic law as their moral basis. You know what the moral law is always based upon? A religion. Now, I don't care if it's Buddhism, I don't care if it's Hinduism, I don't care what it is. If you don't keep a religion at the core base of your philosophy of doing business, it's going to fall apart. And our country, whether they want to admit it or not, and y'all know David Barton up here, I love tremendously his work, and even Glenn Beck has moved to Texas. He knew it was better here than it was in New York, for God's sakes. And he actually is teaching the fact that our country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. And we have successfully abdicated our place as conservatives and Christians and as Republicans and as Tea Partiers. They won't talk about the fiscal issue, but we don't want to talk about the moral issue. And yet, here's the comptroller saying, guess what's making us go broke? 50+% of our kids that go to public school don't have a mom and dad at the house. And I can't say anything wrong about the love we have for these single parents because, y'all, everybody here in this room has been impounded by that and has a single child we're concerned about. And it's not that we're saying that's wrong, it's saying something's wrong whenever you continually sit back and you see more and more and more, and let's take the last election. Alexander, to see if there's any, this isn't even current with Obama getting reelected, which don't even get me started on what the philosophy behind that is. No. Why did he get elected? What's the agreement? Because over 50% of the folks are taking a check from the government. That's the philosophy. You know, Romney made the horrible statement of 47%ers. Let me back it up before Romney ever said that. Let's go back about 200 years from now. 1787, Dr. Alexander Tytler, you've heard of this. He was a Scottish professor, and he was studying the Athenian Republic 2,000 years prior to the start of our country. And what did he find? Dr. Alexander Tytler found this, and you've heard it 1,000 times. He said, a democracy shall exist only until such time as its electorate find they can vote themselves largesse money, bacon, from the public treasury. After which time they will elect the one that brings home the most bacon until they decay from a democracy and they go the different steps back into dictatorship. That ain't Romney. Folks, we as citizens thank God for you and the Tea Party being awakened. You are the last chance of fresh air and breath that I have hope in our country. The Republican Party, God bless them, they're just the only thing out there I can belong to. The Democrats, the best thing that could happen in our country, folks, one of the best things is a revival in the Democratic Party so we'd have a two-party system that would fight for the common good. We're down to a mono system now, and the Republicans are the only chance we have, most of us, to vote for anything we believe in. Okay, I'm ranted and raved, and I'm told I was going to be shut up, shot, and killed if I get it past 8 o'clock. I need to take some questions. So it is now 10 till I'll take some questions.